The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey there. Thank you guys so much for joining the conversation on Ready, Set, Respond today. I'm your host, Carla Alicea, Director of Client Performance with Apartment Ratings and Satisfax, and I am so grateful to be here with you all today. And of course, every month we discuss topics that impact the multifamily industry. These conversations are designed to have a little something for everyone, so I hope you and your colleagues will join in, participate in our audience polls, and take away insights to expand your operations. At the end of this program, don't forget to head over to the Satisfax page on Facebook or Instagram, where you can add a comment and share your biggest takeaway from today's conversation for a chance to win a $50 gift card. All right, guys, we have a fabulous pet-friendly conversation for you today. So coming up are That's My Job guest, Victoria Cowart. Victoria is an accomplished professional with extensive experience in real estate industry, particularly in apartment management and education. As the Director of Education and Outreach for PetScreening, she has been instrumental in enhancing the communication around driving down the risk and driving up revenue for our communities that accept pets. And she's been with them since January of 2021. In addition to her role at PetScreening, Victoria also serves as an NAAEI faculty member, where she offers her expertise in training and facilitation for various companies and associations across the nation. Her passion for effective communication and revenue management consistently yields positive returns for her educational clients. So I'm so excited to introduce you to Victoria, but first, it is time for our Ready, Set, Respond polls. We want to hear from you. So to participate, head over to slido.com and enter that code 2963761, or grab your cell phones and scan that QR code on your screen. We're going to start with a couple of polls, and now keep in mind that these polls have no right or wrong answers, just honest ones. So when you see the poll on the screen, be ready to respond with your feedback. All right, let's get started. All right, our first Ready, Set, Respond poll, we want to know, do you currently have any pets? If yes, please select the types of pets you own from the options below and select all that apply. A lot of dog owners out the gate, 67% of dogs. Oh, cats aren't faring too well. People love their dogs. No birds, no fish, no small mammals. There we go, small mammals. Ferrets, chinchillas, all sorts of pets. All righty. Give it a couple more seconds. We've got 12 respondents, 13. All right, dogs it is. Dogs are the favorite. Okay, now we want to know up next, how many pets do you currently own? 1, 2, 4 or more, or none? 3, 1, all right. Okay, 9 respondents, 13. 54% of our audience having one pet, 20%, 21% having none, 21% having 2, and 7% having 3. All right. Well, now that we know that there are some pet owners out there, let's ask, when you think of a pet-friendly rental community, which aspect is most important to you? Ensuring a welcoming environment for pets of all sizes and breeds, fostering a sense of community among pet owners through social events and gatherings, offering a pet-friendly amenity such as designated play areas or walking trails, or implementing fair and reasonable pet policies that balance the needs of both pets and assistant animal owners and non-pet households. All right, it looks like 67% of you so far saying implementing fair and reasonable pet policies. I like that. Second, we've got 29% saying offering pet-friendly amenities. 7% of you say ensuring a welcoming environment for pets of all sizes and breeds is most important. And fostering a sense of community, also at 7%. All right, let's move on to our last Ready, Set, Respond poll. What would make you feel that a rental community truly embraces being pet friendly? Organizing pet-centric events such as pet parades and costume contests, offering pet-related services like dog walking or pet sitting referrals, allowing pets to be part of a community decision making through a pet owner committee. I liked that one. That would be mine. Providing resources for pet health and wellness, such as access to local veterinarians and pet insurance options. All right, what do you guys think? Where are we at? Response still flowing in. We've got 10 responses so far, 12 responses. All right, it looks like allowing pets to be part of a pet owner committee at 38%. 36% now tied with providing health and wellness resources. Very interesting. And organizing pet-centric events at 13 and offering pet-related services at 13%. All right, some good opinions out there. Thank you so much for sharing that information. I think this is a great time to bring on our guest, Victoria. Welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Carla. Thank you for having me. I'm so appreciative of the opportunity, and I love all the pets on your slides. They're fabulous. What
Thank
great
you so
questions
much.
you had.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's not often that we get to get together as an industry and share our opinions. And I really value our audience members because it gives me that inside look into what they think, right? Really sets up for a really good conversation. So now that we know what they think about what a pet-friendly community is, I want to know from the expert, what do you think a pet-friendly community really means? And do you think there might be a disconnect between what industry thinks, what our industry thinks and how we implement our pet policies and what our prospects and our renters think?
That is a great question, Carla. And I do think that there is a disconnect. I saw one study that said 70 some odd percent of renters say it is really hard to find pet-friendly rentals. Conversely, that we in the industry, 70 some odd percent of us, believe we are pet friendly.
Mm,
So there's a disconnect there, absolutely for certain. And so I feel like the industry believes pet friendly means we welcome pets. I think though when we say that, we fail to remember that at the end of that sentence is a big but. We
mm,
welcome pets, but we don't welcome these breeds, but we don't welcome these weights, but we don't welcome pets below a certain age. So I feel as though we forget the BUTs at the end of our sentence, but the prospects and the renters and residents, they recognize it. And that's why they say finding truly pet-friendly housing is so difficult.
Kind of reminds me of how sometimes you'll see luxury apartment community on a community that isn't quite luxury, right? It's just a
Yes.
little difference in the vernacular of how we interpret that. So pet friendly, right? What does it mean to our prospects? So there's a lot of discussion, when we're talking about pets, right? And all of the buts, right? But breed restrictions, but there are extra charges. We do pet rent and whatnot. And so now we're seeing more requests for service animals or support animals or comfort animals. And I'm getting a little confused on what this all means. Could you break that down for us and set the record straight once and for all?
Oh, that would be my pleasure. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because when we are engaged in property management, we have the unique opportunity to help people find and select a home that meets their needs, hopefully exceeds their expectations, and then to continue to create a home for them. So I think it's so important as we're doing that to consider our disabled applicants, prospects, and renters. And so when we're talking about assistance animals, so that we get this right for those folks, we're talking about an overarching topic, assistance animals. Maybe picture me holding an umbrella, and that is the umbrella terminology, assistance animals. And then under the umbrella, there are two types of animals. On one side, we have the service animals. On the other side, we have the support animals. And they are different animals. So the definition of a service animal, if you're not in California, so everywhere but California, service animal definition, Carla, is really simple. It's just three things: a dog trained for a task for the disabled. Now, we can have lengthy discussions about what those tasks may be and for whom, but essentially that's the root of the definition of a service animal, other than California, where service animals can be animals that are trained other than dogs. But for the rest of the country, it's just a dog trained for a task for the disabled. Does that help, Carla?
That's very easy to remember. Yes, thank you. So now, what's the difference between a support animal, and I'm hearing this term now, a comfort animal? What's that?
Sure. Well, the comfort animal is just another way to say support animal. It's a type of support animal, if you will. But when you think about a support animal, the definition for a support animal is animals that are trained, but because they're not a dog, they'll come across to the support side. So if you have a micro pig that has some training for the disabled, or if you have a miniature pony that has some training for the disabled, because they're not a dog, they would come over to the support side. So that's why this definition says trained or untrained animals. So something that's trained other than a dog comes over here. And then, of course, the largest swath of support animals are the therapeutic or emotional support animals. Some folks will say comfort animals, but we really hear in the industry that ESA abbreviation for emotional support animals more than anything. So again, service animals, just a dog trained for a task for the disabled. Support animals, other trained animals that are not dogs and or untrained animals that are just out there providing that wonderful therapeutic emotional support to the disabled.
Okay, and if a resident comes in and they say they have an ESA, how do I know that that's legitimate?
So the first thing that I do want to say before I answer that question, Carla, is, thank you for asking that question, because the minute somebody steps into an office or calls or emails and says, I've got an animal who's helpful to me, I'm disabled, or they use the words ESA, or they use the word assistance or service or support or comfort, the first thing I really just want to say is thank you for that. Everyone, keep your radar up. What you've just begun is a reasonable accommodation request process. And it's super important that you press pause, and that's PAWS, pet pun over here for pet screening. Press pause and make sure before you say another word what your role is where you work. Because getting into conversation when this is not your function is ill-advised and unnecessary. If it's not your function, if you're not the expert on this topic, minimize your conversation around this topic if you're not the expert and if you're not the person that's handling this. So that's the first thing I want to say. With regard to the pathways, though, Carla, to the root of your question, the reason we visited the definitions is because there are two different definitions and there are also two different pathways. So there's one process for a service animal and one process for a support animal. To your question in particular, you asked about a support animal. So that is the more involved process, and that involves written documentation in support of the reasonable accommodation request for a support animal. And so that is an opportunity to communicate with that requester. You're going to start what HUD calls the interactive process, which is a good faith dialogue, and you're going to have some communication with them in terms of written communication, and you're going to get that documentation. Now, again, what you do next, how you understand the process, to your point, Carla, again, depends upon your role where you are. Are you the person who's supposed to make this decision, or are you the person who's supposed to gather the information and share it with someone else who will? So again, allow that to guide you as to how far you communicate and what you say. We teach, our clients at PetScreening to always tell folks, we're not the expert here on site. That's why we're working with PetScreening. They'll lead you through this process and be able to answer all those questions for you. And that is the safest way, of course, to answer those questions, especially if you're not the person, if somebody else in your corporate structure is handling these reasonable accommodation requests. To the heart of your question, though, it's the documentation, Carla. What
Got it.
does it say, and what do you have a right to expect in that documentation?
And if it's path one, if it's a service animal, how does that differ?
So that's a great question. And this is something that many, many folks in my travels around the country are unaware of. The service animal process is just 2 questions, 2 answers, no documentation. So the first question is the animal necessary for a person with a disability? And the second question is, what work or task has the animal been trained to perform? And again, if you are not in California, everywhere else in the country, by animal, I mean dog. What work or task has a dog been trained to perform? So if you are in North Carolina and somebody comes in and says, I have a service piggy. Well, number one, I'm going to smile because that just sounds adorable. Number two, in my mind, Carla, well, I'm not going to say it, but in my mind, I'm going to think, no, you don't, because there's no such thing as a service piggy in North Carolina. That animal would actually be considered, if it is a viable assistance animal, it would actually be considered a support animal because it's a trained animal, but not a dog. So, that's the service animal path. 2 questions, 2 answers, no documentation. Is the animal necessary for a person with a disability? And what work or task has it been trained to perform? And there are some amazing animals out there, Carla.
Yeah, so talking about that, we have all of these requests. Do you have any data that you can provide us that kind of gives us a sense of the scale around the actual number of households that truly have an assistance animal?
Absolutely. So in the country, my research has revealed that we've got about 70% of homes in the country that have pets or animals. And I'm going to start there because, interestingly enough, when I say that to the property management field members, most of them say, no, it can't be that high. But I do want to point out, as we began this call, you found out that 80% of the folks on it are pet owners, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So we've already proven that my stat, at least for the purposes of this call, is actually low when most people initially react to that thinking it's high. So 70% of homes in the country have pets or animals. By contrast, 28% have children. So I find that very interesting. And
Yes,
of
yeah.
those, right, the 70 versus 28, isn't that fun?
That's very interesting, isn't it?
Yes. And then of those pets and animals that are out there in the world, 91% of them should be pets. 9% should be assistance animals. And of the 9%, only 7% of those are likely to be service animals. So just a really small subset. So 91% pet to 9% assistance animal ratio.
So we do have a question that came in. It's the respondent Douglas is asking, doesn't HUD recognize a miniature horse as a service animal?
HUD, well, again, you've got a service animal definition from HUD in the FHEO 2020-01 Assistance Animal Notice, and the service animal is a dog trained for a task for the disabled. Out in California, they've expanded the definition, and it can be other animals.
Got it.
Now, HUD does always want us to be ready, to be poised, to be flexible and creative. To the degree that we've had horses, I will say that the FHEO 2020-01 Assistance Animal Notice differentiates horses and certain animals from domesticated animals. So there's a classification in this notice of domesticated animals, and there's a classification of unique animals. And then in the unique animal category, there are barnyard variety animals. So if somebody has a horse and they believe it's a service animal, it's a service horse, well, that's great. It can be migrated over to the support animal side. Then because it's a unique animal, the bar can be raised as to what documentation should be in that letter supporting that request. And because it's a barnyard animal variety, in addition, the requester should be applying to live in housing that includes a fenced-in area within which to care for that barnyard animal variety. So in answer to that question, HUD does recognize that there are these animals out there who have value to the disabled, but they're going to come across as support animals, and in particular, unique barnyard variety support animal.
Well, that was a great question, Douglas, and that was a wonderful answer, Victoria. Thank you so much. I had no idea that the policies have evolved so much to incorporate barnyard animals. Who would have thought?
Yeah, and I will say, Carla, those who might be on the call, the podcast or hear it later, if you are out there in the SFR space, that single family build to rent space, where you have those, micro yards, and some of them even have the pet doors. They're being built with the pet doors because they're welcoming of the pets and understanding that this is the single largest common denominator for all renters. There's nothing else more common to our renters other than the fact that they have beating hearts than the number of those who have pets or assistance animals. So those in that SFR space are going to become the ones who are going to most often see these requests for unique animals and or barnyard, in particular, barnyard variety animals, because they have the exterior space with the fencing ready and waiting for these folks. So the micro piggies and the miniature horses, and I'll say, Carla, that I've heard that the miniature horses are often utilized because of their lifespan. You get a really great sized animal who helps a disabled individual who has difficulty walking and needs additional stability with their walking. This large dog might be wonderful, but sadly only for a really limited number of years.
Yeah,
Whereas
10,
these,
12 years.
yeah, so these miniature horses can be 20, 25 years. And so that has a great value for them in continuity of care and capacity.
Absolutely. I never thought of that. Thank you for sharing that. So, okay, so 70% of households have pets, 9% of those potentially are assistance animals. How do we in property management leverage this information? What should we be considering as far as our policies and as far as, other renters' concerns around pet policies? What should we be thinking about?
Well, we should definitely be thinking and speaking about having a managed pet environment. When I'm working with clients and we're talking about how they're going to frame this and speak about this in their future with their applicants, we talk about going from pet friendly to pet passionate while embracing pet responsibility and even helping our clients have a managed, healthier pet population, right? So we have to think about pet waste. That's not healthy at all for our communities. We have to be thinking about our policies about barking and leashing. And so our pet profiles, as well as our assistance animal profiles, do ask these pet and assistance animal owners, if you have a walkable pet, will you pick up after it? Will you always walk it on a leash, right? And then our pet and assistance animal profiles have the capacity for the site teams to click add issues on the pet profile. And if that pet has become a poopertrator or barker or biter,
That's adorable.
right?
A poopertrator.
That's for my pets at my friends at Poo Prints. So if a pet or animal has become a poopertrator, as I say at Poo Prints, a barker or a biter, our site teams and our industry professionals can click add issues, and they can add that issue to the profile of the pet or assistance animal, still fair, and that information can follow them to their next, pet screening community where that information can be shared and accessed. So we really need to think about our management of our pet population, because the pet population is tremendous. As you saw earlier, many of the folks on the call have one pet, but many of the folks on the call have more than one pet.
Yes.
So, we've got to really think about the number of these pets in our apartment communities. If you think about, an average 200 unit apartment community, and if even just 60% of that 200 unit apartment community has pets, that's 120 apartments with pets. And then if you think about, the average that I've seen of 1.6 pets per home, you've got 192 pets in that 200 unit apartment community by average statistics.
That's a big pet population.
Yes, we call that a pet population.
So tell me about the FIDO score and how on-site teams can leverage this score. Is it kind of like, us humans, how we have a credit score?
It is. That is our play on FICO score, Carla, that you've honed in on. And so when our pet parents arrive at the landing pages for each of our client communities, they'll see 3 choices: no pet profile, assistance animal profile. And so the pet parent clicks the household pet profile and completes one of these profiles per household pet that they have. And when they're done entering all the data points, Carla, age, weight, breed, male, female, spayed, neutered or not, that's a really important factor in behavior. They'll also have the opportunity to upload photos, vaccination details, keying in vaccination details, as well as uploading those documents. Then they'll answer 23 pet parenting questions about that pet's prior history, as well as the pet parent's levels of responsibility. And all of that churns through our algorithm. And before a result is popped out, it's going to compare those initial data points to our client community's breed or weight restrictions, if they have them, and or even an age restriction. And so if the breed or weight or age restriction, one or more of those is triggered by the information entered, that pet will receive a 0 FIDO score. If none of those are triggered, it's going to go through the full algorithm, and more than 30 data points are going to be combined in value through our algorithm, and out will pop a risk score, a revenue management score, the FIDO score. So it is a 1 to 5 paw rating for each pet's apartment living suitability, let's call it, right? So 5 means this is a really suitable pet and pet parent combination. 1, on the other end of the spectrum, very risky. And there are 3 bite questions to the risk. There are 3 bite questions in the profile. Has your animal ever bitten another animal, a person, or been quarantined for a bite of any kind? And if that pet parent answers yes to any one of those 3 questions, even if it had been a perfect 5-paw pet, it will drop like a brick to a 1 paw. So not all 1 paws are biters, but all biters will become 1 paws. And so this is us alerting our property management clients so that they can see the risk and decide if they want to take that risk on, because for far too long we've just been thinking about risk in terms of breed and weight. But that's not all there is to know for certain, especially when I saw a study last year or the year prior of 18,000 dogs, Carla. Can you guess what percent that study said a dog's behavior was related to their breed?
You know, I have a good friend who actually breeds dogs and is a pet groomer. I'm going to say it's low.
It was surprisingly low.
Yeah.
It was only
Yeah.
9%. 9% of the dog's behaviors were found to be related to their breed in a study of 18,000 dogs. So for far too often, we've just known breed and weight restrictions, and that's what we've tried to make our risk management decisions on. So this FIDO score is an entirely new way to really look at risk, and it can be used in combination, as I said, with our clients' existing breed and weight restrictions, or it can be used instead of. We have clients who have no breed or weight restrictions, and they're using our FIDO scoring to make their determination as to what pets they will or will not welcome into their community. And of course, everybody can dial their own, risk up or down as they choose. We're providing them with the FIDO score information to give them all the opportunity to do that. And so they can use that to dial in their risk for sure.
And I imagine that's why a lot of pet owners find it difficult. It is that breed and weight restriction. And this FIDO score, I think you had said the words earlier, if you choose to eliminate those breed and weight restrictions, the FIDO score could become a more equitable solution for managing that risk.
Absolutely. I think of that as an equitable and defensible policy structure, as well as a revenue management structure, because the information that we're churning through the algorithm has been provided by that pet parent. So this, I do believe, is a defensible and equitable way to approach both your pet population and your pet revenue.
And just one more thing before we get to our fact or fiction game. I thought this was interesting. The fact that pet parents or pet renters, households with pets, tend to stay longer. Their duration of stay is significantly longer, it says, than those without pets, 18 versus 46 months. So how does that relate to an increased revenue opportunity?
That is a great question, Carla. Yes, I felt so surprised by the 18 versus 46 months. I knew that people who feel welcome, who value their pets as members of their family, and who feel the welcome of their pet and their pet family would stay longer. But that number was startling to me. So number one, having a more pet inclusive policy is going to make your community more resilient in that I believe you're going to have greater lengths of stay. And I think in our industry, we know retention is our
Yeah,
secret sauce, right?
especially
So
right
that's,
now.
and so we help our clients become more pet friendly or more even pet passionate if we can really get them to move along the spectrum from pet friendly to pet passionate. You know, how wonderful is that? But I also love sharing that the FIDO score is there to alert them for risk so they can make those decisions, but it's also there as a tool for them if they want to use that for a defensible, equitable pricing structure as well. Right now, the industry by and large charges what we call flat pricing, the same price for the 5-year-old Shih Tzu as the 5-month-old Shih Tzu. And they present a very different risk proposition to their apartments, that 5-year-old versus 5-month-old, right? So what we offer is the opportunity to use the FIDO scoring for pricing as well. And we have a FIDO pricing tool built into the system. So our clients can say, okay, Victoria, I'm coming to you with a $25 per month pet rent and a $200 pet fee at entry. I've got 200 apartments. What will FIDO pricing do for me? And how will it work? And simply put, they increase the pet rent a few dollars per month per paw that the animal loses. So maybe the best pricing is for a 5-paw at $25, a 4-paw is $30, a 3-paw is $35, a 2-paw, and so on. And so you create a $25 to $45 window of pet rent. So that window is a $20 window. And the same can be said for the pet fee at entry. Create a $100 window and increase that pet fee from $200 to $225 to $250, $275, $300 as you drop from 5 to 1 paw. And Carla, by creating that $20 pet rent window and that $100 pet fee window, an average community of 200 units has an opportunity to earn additional income per year of at or near $15,000. Then a 5 cap, that's a magical boost of property value at $300,000 for a service that's free. PetScreening does not charge our clients. So that's just an amazing set of results that I love sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing all of that wonderful information and clearing up my confusion. I am now, the record has been set straight. I am now on the same page with you. So thank you.
Wonderful.
As all of our guests that come on to Ready, Set, Respond get to play our fact or fiction game, this is a game where I'm going to read you a short story or snippet from the news, and in this case, about some headlines of major payouts that resulted from lawsuits due to the misinterpretation of these pet laws. So you need to tell me if that story is fact or if it's fiction. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's hear it. This is exciting.
All right, and audience, you can play along as well. Go ahead and get that Slido app up, scan that QR code. We're going to get ready. We have 3 quick stories I'm going to read about some hefty payouts. So this first one is in 2022, Hobby Lobby was required to pay a $50,000 fine in monetary damages to a former clerk after failing to allow her service dog on the job as a reasonable accommodation for her disability, including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Is this fact or is this fiction?
I'm going to say that's fact.
Yes, you are correct. That is fact, and so is our audience. And I wanted to share this story because, right, the ADA, these policies don't just affect our housing, right? They also, we need to be very cognizant of these policies as a workplace, right? So our work policies also need to be accommodating to these requests as well. All right, our next story is in 2019, disabled residents in Colorado Housing Authority won a $1 million discrimination lawsuit after their landlord refused to allow their emotional support animals without an additional fee. Is this fact or is this fiction?
I'm going to say that's fact.
And again, the expert is right, and so is our audience. 82% of you saying fact. Wonderful. We've got some smart pet policy providers on this call with us. Okay, last call, last story. In 2018, a bookstore went viral after a customer claimed they were denied entry with their emotional support chinchilla. It sparked an online debate on accommodating non-traditional support animals using the hashtag embrace diversity. Is this fact or is this fiction?
So Carla, this one's fun because, as you mentioned earlier, the Fair Housing Act and the Fair Housing Amendments Act is what pertains to us in this industry. The Americans with Disabilities Act is what pertains to the workplace or the public square, if you will. So when you're out and about and you want to go into a restaurant or a bookstore, we should only really be talking about service animals, right? So this topic, that you presented to me here, this story could have happened, might not have happened, but emotional support animals aren't supposed to be going out into the public square. It's ADA out there, and that's service animals. Nonetheless, I'm going to say this is fact, that it occurred, that they were denied entry appropriately, and that it did cause an online debate. So I'm going to say this is fact.
Well, why we learned quite a bit from that. This is actually fiction. I made this one up. I thought it was
Okay,
fun.
good deal. I can see it happening though, because people do believe, hearing the discussion of emotional support animals so often in the public square today, they don't realize that they are not supposed to be out in the public square. That's for the Fair Housing Act. What's out there in the public square is the Department of Justice's Americans with Disabilities Act, and that is exclusive to service animals. So I do feel like folks are thinking service, support, what's the difference? I should be able to take my necessary animal with me wherever and whenever, and that's just not the case. But I see so much of it out there. I thought your story was fabulous, and I thought it really occurred.
Thank you. Thank you. I had fun writing that one. Well,
That was good.
Victoria, thank you so much for joining Ready, Set, Respond and playing our Fact or Fiction game. Audience, if you want more information about pet screening, reasonable accommodation training, please go ahead and connect with Victoria on LinkedIn. I've put her QR code up there that'll take you right to her profile. We were just so grateful to have you on today's call. It was such a pleasure.
Carla, it was my pleasure to join you and your listeners. Thank you so much for being interested in this topic. It impacts the largest segment of your renters out there. So let's get social. Let's get pet passionate. Let's do our work and bring lots of smiles to our pet and assistance animal owners.
Absolutely. And guys, right now it's time for you to go online and keep that conversation going. Head over to Instagram and Facebook and tell us your biggest takeaway from today's conversation. All the entries are due by 5 p.m. tonight for a chance to win that $50 gift card, and our judges are standing by. Also, don't forget to register for our next conversation. Go to satisfax.com/webinars. We're going to be talking all about finding equilibrium. What are some effective strategies for a sustainable workload with Jason Kay, author and director of onboarding and enablement at RealPage? Well, all good things must come to an end, and we have reached the end of our program. Do me a favor and help our program improve by completing that closing survey before you log off. Your feedback is important to me. Thank you for joining the conversation today. I'm Carla Alicea. We'll see you next time.